Hey friends, here I am with my trusty place value chart, and I'm going to teach a lesson on rounding decimals. Now, there's a few things you need to know when rounding decimals. The first thing you need to know is, of course, how to read your number. So let's say we had a number like this. How would you read that number in decimal form? Let's put it in our place value chart. I would read it 2 and 4/10. And of course, you know you could write that also as a mixed number like this, 2 and 4/10. Now let's say you were told to round that to the nearest whole number, which is saying you're going to round it to the ones place. If you know you need to round your number to the nearest whole number or to the ones place, you can picture a number line. And on the number line, you have 2 and 3. In the middle, the exact midpoint between 2 and 3, you have 2 and 5/10, which is 2.5. You need to figure out if you need to round up to 3, or down to 2. So rounding 2 and 4/10 to either 2 or 3. And the trick that I use is when I'm looking at this digit in my tenths place, the rhyme that I use to remember is if the digit is 5 or more, I'm going to go up a floor to my nearest whole number. And if the digit is 4 or less, I'm going to let it rest. Let it rest at the smaller number that you could round to. So since this digit is a 4 or less, I'm going to let it rest, and it rounds to 4. So if the question said something like, what is 2 and 4/10 rounded to the nearest whole number? The answer would be 2 and 4/10 rounded to the nearest whole number is 2. Okay, let's look at another example. What is 3 and 58/100 rounded to the nearest tenth? And we're going to want to answer this question in a complete sentence. And so I've given you, this is like a sentence starter for you to help you write your answer in a sentence. 3 and 58/100 rounded to the nearest tenth is, and we'll figure out what goes here in this blank. Okay, so we're going to picture a number line. And now here, 3 and 58/100. Always kind of helpful to visualize that as a mixed number when you're first starting out with decimals. 3 and 58/100. I need to round that to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to put it in between 3 and 5/10, which is the same as 3 and 50/100. They have the same value. And 3 and 6/10, which is the same as 3 and 60/100. They have the same value. I can put a 0 on the end of these numbers and it will not change the value of those numbers. Okay. So my midpoint exactly in between 3 and 5/10 and 3 and 6/10 is 3 and 55/100. That's exactly in the middle. So I need to figure out where 3 and 58/100 goes. Let me write it a little bigger. 3 and 58/100. So in order to round it to the nearest tenths place, I need to focus in on my hundredths place to help me make that determination. So when I look at my hundredths place, I'm going to use my rhyme to help me. 5 or more go up a floor. So 3 and 58/100 is kind of like right here on my number line. and I'm going to go up a floor, which means round up. Since that digit is an 8, I'm going to round up. That's where it's located on my number line, and I'm rounding up. So I'm rounding up to 3 and 6/10. Okay, in this next example, we're going to round to the nearest hundredth. What is 4 and 562 thousandths rounded to the nearest hundredth? So this I can write in mixed number form, 4 and 562 out of 1,000 equal pieces. So I've got whole number 4 and then this very, very small fraction to go with it. And I'm going to round it to the nearest hundredth place, okay, which is this middle place value position. Now remember, when you're answering questions about rounding, it's probably helpful to answer it in a complete sentence. 4 and 562 thousandths rounded to the nearest hundredth is blank. We'll fill in the blank. All right, let's get our number line going. I'm rounding to the nearest hundredth place. So I need to locate the midpoint between 4 and 56 hundredths and 4 and 57 hundredths. I can either round up or down to these two locations. The exact midpoint in between these two places is 4 and 565 thousandths. Okay, so now remember your rhyme that will help you locate this digit on your number line. 4 and 562 thousandths. So in order to round to the hundredths place, I'm going to have to focus on my thousandths place to help me make that determination. So remember, if my digit is a 4 or less, I'm going to let it rest. The digit in the thousands place is a 4 or less, so I'm going to round down. This is kind of 456, I would say, yeah, about here is where that's located. So I'm going to round down to 4 and 500. Guys, I'm getting tongue-tied. 4 and 56 hundredths. I'm rounding down to that location. 4 and 56 hundredths.